Open a map from 1730, not a modern reconstruction. An original European print, inked borders, hand-colored coastlines. Now, look east. Across the center of the Eurasian continent, where today you'd find Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Siberia, there is a single word written in enormous letters: Tartaria. It stretches from the Caspian Sea to the Pacific Ocean. Bigger than Europe, bigger than the Ottoman Empire, bigger than anything most Europeans had ever seen. And it was real, not as a country, not as an empire, not as a civilization. So how did a non-existent empire dominate European maps for over 250 years? And what was actually there? 1241, winter. The Mongol armies pour into Europe. Cities fall in days. Armies collapse in hours. Entire regions are flattened. Poland burns. Hungary breaks. The edges of the Holy Roman Empire tremble. Then, without warning, the invaders vanish. Europe doesn't know why. They don't know that the Great Khan died. They don't know that succession disputes pulled the armies east. All they know is that something came from beyond their world, destroyed everything in its path, and disappeared. The invaders called themselves Mongols. Some were Tartars. Europe heard Tartar and transformed it, Tataros. The underworld, hell. The word shifted. Tatars became Tartars. Their homeland became Tartari. This wasn't geography. It was fear made permanent. By the 1300s, European maps began labeling the unknown East as Tartari. There are no borders, no capitals, no internal divisions. Just the name stretched across blank space. At the time, blank space was dangerous. Cartography was becoming an industry. Kings and merchants wanted complete worlds. Not uncertainty. A map that said, "We don't know," looked weak. So, cartographers made a choice. They filled the silence with a word, Tartaria. And once it appeared on a respected map, it spread. Mercator prints it, Ortelius repeats it. Blaeu engraves it into atlases that sit in royal libraries. Each copy makes it more real. Not because anyone verified it, because no one challenged it. Meanwhile, the land labeled Tartaria was anything but empty. Across the steppes rode the Kazakh Khanate. Formed in 1465, it endured for nearly 4 centuries. It wasn't a loose tribe wandering aimlessly. It controlled trade corridors, fielded vast cavalry forces, maintained diplomatic systems sophisticated enough to negotiate between expanding empires. They resisted both Russian expansion from the north and Qing pressure from the east for generations. They had law, memory, structure. They were not Tartarian, they were Kazakh. Further east rose the Dzungar Khanates, the last great nomadic empire of the steppe. In the 1600s and early 1700s, it controlled territory stretching across modern Xinjiang and western Mongolia. Its armies carried firearms and cannons. Its leaders negotiated as equals with the Qing dynasty. For decades, it was powerful enough to threaten one of the largest empires on Earth. Then, in 1758, after years of warfare, the king launched a campaign that destroyed it. Most of the Dzungar population was killed or displaced. An empire erased in less than a decade. European maps did not record its rise. They barely recorded its fall. They simply kept writing Tartaria. Further west, the Khanates of Khiva, Bukhara, and Kokand flourished. Their cities shimmered in blue tile and geometric symmetry. The Registan in Samarkand still stands today, a reminder that this was not empty land. It was a center of Islamic scholarship, a node in the Silk Road network, a crossroads between Persia, China, and Russia. Libraries existed there, while European maps still labeled the region with a placeholder. North of them, in Siberia, dozens of societies managed enormous territories through trade and kinship networks. Fur routes stretched for thousands of miles. Iron, jade, and silver moved across landscapes European printers had never seen. Yet on commercial maps in Amsterdam and Paris, it was summarized in a single word: Tartaria. A continent-sized oversimplification. Why didn't the label disappear sooner? Because maps are not just records, they are claims. To label something is to imply understanding. A European king holding a map that named the entire world felt powerful, even if the name concealed ignorance, and correcting it would require admitting that ignorance. So instead of removing the word, cartographers subdivided it. Chinese Tartari, Muscovite Tartari, independent Tartari. Detail was added, but the foundation stayed flawed. The illusion remained intact. Then, in the 1700s, reality forced revision. The Russian Empire expanded east with surveyors and soldiers. They measured rivers, marked fortresses, negotiated treaties. They produced military maps with real borders. At the same time, King China consolidated control over former Dzungar lands. Information solidified, the blank space was gone, and quietly, without announcement, Tartaria faded from European maps. By 1850, it was mostly gone. By 1900, it had vanished entirely, replaced by specific names. Russian Turkestan, Mongolia, Chinese territories. The ghost dissolved. Not because something was hidden, because better information finally replaced the placeholder. Centuries later, the word returned online. Old maps resurfaced. Screenshots circulated. People asked, how could an empire this large simply disappear? The answer is less dramatic than the question. It didn't disappear. It was never an empire. It was a label applied to lands Europeans did not fully understand. But here's why the myth resonates. Central Asian history is rarely taught in depth. Few people learn about the Dzungar destruction, or the endurance of the Kazakh Khanate, or the intellectual life of Bukhara. When knowledge is thin, old labels look like lost worlds. The conspiracy theory is incorrect, but the curiosity behind it points to something real. A vast region of history that was simplified, compressed, and misnamed for centuries. The word Tartaria tells us less about Central Asia and more about how empires map what they fear.